carries the weight of the world on his shoulders. From the weight of frustration to not being able to find a job, to the weight of lethargy of not being able to sleep at night with that newborn baby, to the weight of rage to that girl that betrayed you after you gave her your heart. And worst of all is the weight of carrying the fact that you know you're not living up to the strength that is within you, not being the strongest version of yourself. And all of this resistance accumulates. It grows so heavy that your body feels like it's going to break. So what do we do when we feel like we're on the brink of destruction? What do we do when we feel like the weight has become so unbearable? We need to learn to lift that weight. Not because of who we are now, but because of who we know we are to become. Don't you ever let somebody tell you you can't do it. You have a dream, a purpose, you gotta protect it. It's the people that can't do it themselves that'll tell you that you can't do it. You can do it, period. You see, it's impossible not to feel pain. But to not feel pain, you have to live too cautiously to even be living at all. You see, you may not get that job the first time, or the next one, or the one after that. But here's the thing. You don't quit, you don't give up. You get back up and prepare for the next one. You see, the biggest enemy you have to deal with is yourself. You don't have to personally be perfect to do great things. You just need to want it bad enough to get up and do something about it. You gotta dig deep down within you and ask yourself, who do I want to be? Not what, but who. Now just look at your challenges like the plates that you slap on the barbell. Your failed relationships, adversaries that attack you, your broken heart, lost job. When you look at them this way, you see a way to overcome them. Now, God doesn't send troubles to you, but just remember that each one of these obstacles are designed to strengthen weaknesses within your own character. Stop running away from your challenges. You see, it's easy to be on the bottom. It doesn't take any effort to be a loser. But you see, the opportunities that come into your life mean nothing unless you take full advantage of them. It's with repetitive action that you get stronger. And in that same way, by overcoming obstacles in your life over and over again through faith, you get stronger. Once you understand this, you not only accept these challenges, but as men, you beg for them. But now that you know you can do it, go out there and lift that weight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very last episode of the Real Men CEO series. My name is Ndenlo. I've got an amazing guest for you today on this broadcast. And we're going to bring him in, definitely. And I'm sure you guys already know who it is, as you can see on the flyers. And we are so excited. But first, let me introduce my co-host, Apostle Douglas. You're welcome.
Blessing. Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here.
And for the first time on The Real Men, but certainly not on the last time for sure, it's Ruthgen.
Hi, welcome everybody. Pleasure to be here.
Yes. I want to welcome everybody that's tuning in. If you're watching with us for the very, very first time, I'd like to tell you that The Real Men is underneath Powerhouse Ministries International. It's a church that's based in the Netherlands, and we are a global church in the Netherlands, in Jamaica, in the US, and under Powerhouse Ministries is the Real Men Ministries. And the Real Men was released to basically impact the lives of men out there. The challenge with men is we go through life's issues, it hits us, we keep quiet, and we just kind of roll through it. But we want to share as men. We want to learn from men that have gone before, men that have had a life of success, just like our guest today. Learn what the secret is and apply that in our lives to live better lives. The apostles of Powerhouse Ministries are Apostle Orlando and Apostle Paulette. We want to honor them for allowing us to be on this platform, creating this platform for us, for men to share and learn from one another. And we are going to do some great learning today. We can almost guarantee, because the two previous broadcasts were amazing. And if you have not checked it out, then please go and check out the first two broadcasts. The first one with Victor Body Lawson, the founder of Victor Body Lawson Architects, and the second one was Ndenlo, the regional director of Meta in Africa. Very, very, very powerful episode. Please go and check it out if you haven't. Guys, this show is going to be interactive, and so please send in your questions. We want to hear from you guys. If you've got questions for our guest, please let us hear them. We're going to actually put them to the guest as well. So let's make it interactive. And please make sure you share, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the Facebook channel, and also share this so you don't just keep it for yourself, because it's a great, great, great message that's going to go out. So you want to get your friends, family, men, women, children, it doesn't matter. There's going to be great wisdom released today that will help to improve and impact your life. So please don't keep it for yourself. So make sure you hit that share button. Make sure you hit that likes button. So without further ado, I'm going to share intro video so that you guys can get to know our guest a little bit more before I bring him online.
Mezuo Nwuneli is the managing partner of Sahel Capital Agribusiness Managers, a food and agribusiness-focused private investment firm investing across sub-Saharan Africa. Prior to founding Sahel Capital, Mezuo held roles at JP Morgan, Ocean and Oil Holdings, and FIG Funds. He is a non-executive chairman/co-founder of ACE Foods, a Nigeria-based food manufacturing company, and co-founder/non-executive director at Sahel Consulting, an agriculture-focused management consulting firm. Mezuo also serves on the Nigeria National Advisory Board for Impact Investing, and on the boards of the African Private Equity and Venture Capital Association and the Private Equity and Venture Capital Association, Nigeria. He is also an independent director at Hygea HMO Limited and First World Communities Limited. He is an Eisenhower Fellow and an Archbishop Tutu Fellow. He holds a Master in Business Administration MBA from Harvard Business School and received a BSc in Industrial Management with a minor in Information Systems from Carnegie Mellon University. He was honored by Harvard Business School in 2021 with its Distinguished Alumni Achievement Award. Mezuo is married to Ndidi Nwuneli, who is the founder of Leap Africa and has also been recently appointed CEO of the One Campaign, a not-for-profit campaigning organization founded by Bono in 2004 to fight extreme poverty and disease, particularly in Africa. Mezuo and Ndidi have two lovely children. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to The Real Men tonight, our esteemed guest, Mezuo Nwuneli.
Yes. Wow. What an intro video. Speaks a lot for them. But here's the man himself. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Wow. I was just thinking as that intro video was going on, I was trying to count how many companies, how many boards of directors, how many achievements, awards. It is just astounding. And if people didn't know about you, then now they have a little bit of an idea. about the life that you've led and the success that you've achieved, and of course, what is still yet to come, of course. So I'm super excited about this broadcast. Thank you so much for honoring us with your time. We know you're super busy. We even had to push this whole broadcast back 1 hour because of your busy schedule. And so we don't take it for granted. So we want to say thank you for honoring us with your time. And we're trusting that it will be time well spent, that the seeds that you're going to sow into the lives of everybody that's listening, and even into the lives of other people who are going to be impacted by what you're going to share. So thank you so much. Really looking forward to this. And yes, let's start off with a story. I look at your life, and it's definitely one of success. And this success comes with a lot of ups and downs. And I'm sure that there were many significant points in your life that helped shape the man that you are today. So why don't we start with one particular story, the 50 kobo story, that for people.
Sure. No, 16 years ago, I think, was a defining time for me. 2007, my mother passed away 6 months earlier at the age of 56. So, which was, quite traumatic for my siblings and myself. And my daughter was about to be born. She was born in June. And in May of 2007, I went to the name ceremony of my friend's son. And as I was leaving the event, I was shot by robbers. I didn't realize that they were there trying to steal a car. Nearly died. Thankfully, friends got me to a hospital very quickly shortly afterwards. Had to be flown out to the US. Had couple surgeries. Couple months I could walk again. 9 months I could walk without a limp, and then 3 years I could go jog without painkillers. But very tough time emotionally, like my mother passing, nearly dying, then my daughter being born. Went through a bout of depression during that time, just because, I wasn't sure I was going to walk again or not walk again. And then felt short, let me try and do some of the things I've always wanted to do and never done, and moved to Senegal. And thankfully had a very accommodating wife who said, okay, and moved along with the kids as well to Senegal, because it was, a very spontaneous decision at the time to do, but very traumatic during that time, but also defining, because it set me on a path that, interestingly enough, led to the founding of different companies after that.
Yeah, wow, what a absolutely great story. And for those that didn't get the reference, the 50 kobo. Kobo is the equivalent of cent in Nigeria. So we didn't want,
Yeah,
you can't call it 50 cents.
That teased me that it wasn't 50 cents, but 50 kobo is what I was trying to do.
Awesome. So when that happens, I'm sure everybody's thinking, I don't know how many people are online, but I can bet at least 90% of people listening have not gone through that kind of experience. So not necessarily getting shot, but certainly a near death experience. And I think people sort of say your life, flashes before your eyes. So when you're in that moment of contemplating this could be the end, what is going through your mind at that particular time, and how was that changing your outlook?
Sure. And I joke about it now, but it was many years before I could actually joke about it. But I joke about it now, but it took a while to sort of get over that, emotional and mental place. And it's really true that your life flashes before your eyes very quickly. I remember the first 10 seconds, a whole range of things went through my mind. I think one was sort of realization that this is not a movie. It's me. I've actually been shot. I'm on the ground. And then the next realization was, okay, I'm alive. And then the next emotion that went through my mind, interestingly enough, was anger. And anger because I had been very diligent about saving and investing and building for the future, and to some degree sacrificing, what day to day for the future, and spent a lot of time working. And it sort of hit me hard that if I died at that instance, that truly none of that would matter. And anger because I wished I spent more time on experiences, more time with family, and spending some of that savings on that time experience family. And then I think after that emotion, it was okay, I'm alive. So what do I need to do to actually stay alive? And then that was the adrenaline then kicked in, and there was a number of different things that happened afterwards. But very fortunate that I had friends around that got me to hospital quickly, and very fortunate that, and I'll tell one story just to actually I'll tell two around this, because it's interesting how God works. Because I was in the hospital in Lagos, I won't say which hospital, and they'd done an X-ray, and they were about to they wanted to do an MRI, but their MRI wasn't working. So they couldn't do an MRI in the hospital. Now I had insurance, so they had come over to say that they could move me to a different hospital for me to do the MRI. And I had been shot, my femur was fractured, I had maybe 200 pellets throughout my leg, blood everywhere. And I knew I was going to be leaving in a couple of days to the US, and I wanted to keep my strength and build it up. So I said, you know what, let me not do the MRI here. Let me wait till I get to the US and then do the MRI there. And so, I was patched up, flown to the US. And then in the US, they did the X-ray. And then I asked them, the doctor, aren't you going to do an MRI? And they looked at me like I was crazy and said, an MRI is a magnet. If your leg went to the MRI, all the metal pellets in your leg would effectively pull. So if the MRI was actually working in the hospital in Lagos, my leg would have been destroyed at best. But the fact that it wasn't working, and that I chose not to go, or I felt moved not to go to another hospital, then, effectively survived that. And then the last comment is, when I was in the hospital in the US, they mentioned that they're not sure that they have to test to see if my knee is compromised. And if it's compromised, they'll have to amputate. And they were going to inject a fluid into my knee. And if I did not feel pressure, it meant my knee, and it did not feel pain, my knee was compromised and they would have to amputate. But if I felt pain, it meant that the liquid couldn't escape and that pressure would cause pain. So they injected it and I screamed in pain. And it's the only time in my life till today that I've had intense pain and intense happiness at the same time, because the pain, because it was extreme pain, but also happiness, realizing that my leg was not going to be amputated. So, but it was definitely a very emotional time, very depressing, just recovering through that time period, very thankful, grateful from support from my wife and family and her family as well during that difficult time. And then it sort of led to reflection about life, what is important, and what pathways make sense, after that, that point in time.
Wow, that's fantastic stories. That thank God that you were saved from that medical what could have been a disaster. Absolutely, God does work in mysterious ways. Amen, amen, amen. Wow, so that is a great story, and I just want to hang on this a little bit, because I think whenever people see the accolades, people see the success, they kind of think, it's just, somebody's lucky, or somebody's super really smart. But everybody goes through these kind of dark times, these valleys, and it's I think we need to speak more about it, because some people may be going through, not necessarily have the same experience, but certainly going through a tough period where they are in a dark place, basically. So, and I think, yeah, you're surviving a gunshot and is a bittersweet experience, because on one hand you're like, I'm alive, but on the other hand, you must have been asking questions like, why me? Why was I shot? So, just speak to the maybe the darker thoughts. And it's not something that we normally do, but I just think maybe you can help somebody here that's maybe going through a time, but through the times when you thought, okay, why me? Maybe it were taking longer to recover, and just what really in those times of maybe a depression or darker thoughts, what helped pull you through eventually to the light?
Sure. Of course, many thoughts went through my mind. One thought was, is this is God trying to get my attention? Was he trying to get my attention before, and I was just not paying attention and refusing to listen? And this was him saying, I'm going to get your attention now because you have no other choice. So, there's that went through my mind. And so I was really reflecting quite a bit on my path, paths I've taken, decisions making, trying to say, okay, how could I be better as a person? And then when I was still not walking, I had a very good friend I went to high school with, and Nigerian guy, went to high school with him in Jos. He was living in France at the time, and he actually had a bottle of champagne delivered to me where I was in the US, and with a note that said, you can't open this until you start walking again. This was when I didn't think that I would actually be walking, but that actually was, it was really helpful for me because it gave a little bit of hope, during that time. And, my wife was giving me tough love as well. And I can't blame her. Maybe to give some context, because during when our first child was born, I don't think I was as attentive and helpful when our first child was born. So then said, okay, what, our second child, I'm going to be there, attentive, on the ball. And our daughter was born a month after I was shot, and but because I was recovering, she was effectively giving our daughter a bath and then helping me give myself a bath because I couldn't give myself a bath. And I was, of course, it's not my fault. I didn't plan this. I was going to be helpful, but I was very depressed. And when I say she was giving tough, there were a couple of times she was like, there are people who are cripples who could get a job, so you can't be depressed. You have to go out there. You have to go out there, look for something, but she really pushed. And I did every second of it during that time. But I think she was really focused on trying to see, how do I get out of that, dark mental place where I was. And then now what's interesting is I knew that I needed something different. And so decided, and there are many conversations I went to do, decided to move to Senegal. And Senegal for me was just something different. Chance to learn a new language, be outside of Lagos for a while, and also not to be somewhere cold. The US, Europe, very cold. They want to be anywhere cold. And then, thankfully, my wife moved, and Didi moved with the kids to Senegal, and we're there for the next 2.5 years. Now, what's interesting is that the time that I spent in Senegal, especially working with, I ended up joining a private equity firm there and helping set it up, was actually the building blocks and foundation that led to each of the businesses my wife and I started afterwards. And so and I would not have taken that step if this experience didn't happen, but literally learned what I needed to do to set up a private equity firm just by the process of helping the other of their firm. Also started the process of learning about the agriculture sector. And so it was some of mental healing, but at the same time, new doors opened in ways I didn't even think about or didn't anticipate that led to where I am today.
Wow, that's powerful, powerful stuff. And I'm super encouraged for, when I go through my own issues that, God always makes a way. One of my favorite scriptures, that God works for the good. Everything works, everything comes together for the good of those that love God and are called according to his purposes. And yeah, we can always take strength. And no matter what happens in life, we know that God is behind us, and somehow, some way, he will use it for his good and for his glory and for our good as well. Awesome, awesome. That's great. I just want to, maybe before we move on, into the next set of questions, I just maybe want to open up to our my co-host Apostle Douglas, if you've got a question for our guest tonight.
Blessing, sir. I don't really have a question, but as you were speaking, telling your story, it brought to me a scripture. And so those that may be dealing with something, maybe dealing with something similar that he went through, or whatever you may be struggling with. But the scripture that gave me when I heard you talking, sir, was Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. And we all know that scripture. It said, "Have not I commanded thee, be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee, whithersoever thou goest." And sir, what you went through and what you went and dealt with during that time, the Lord was with you, and you did not give up. The motivation that you continue to do to where you at now, that's definitely motivation for us that's listening, encouragement to those that's listening. And I want to encourage those that may be dealing with something they're going through, dealing with that. Touch on that scripture and listen to his story that he went through, that it will be encouragement for you. And so I thank you, sir, for what you are pouring out to us and giving us today. It's definitely encouraging to me, and I can't wait to hear more that you have. So I hope it bless, encourage everyone that's watching and listening.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for that. All right, we're gonna shift gears, and we're gonna go back to the beginning. Sounds like some kind of movie, but yeah, we're gonna go back to the beginning. So take us to the young Mezuo, who was just starting out in life. So the first time you can basically talk to us about what started to make an impression on your life. So what were the early influences, either people or specific events that basically started to shape your perception of the world and start to shape the values of which you started to live life by?
Sure. So, and I'll give some context on family. So, I both my parents were my father was a university professor at University of Lagos. He taught mass communications. My mother taught English literature. She was a lecturer at the university. So my parents met in the US in college, moved back to Nigeria, and went to academia. So I grew up in an academia household. Now, what's interesting is that both my parents grew up in the church and then left the church and then came back. So my mother, Lutheran church, father, Catholic, and then somewhere in college, they left the church and actually never asked why till today. But then the first time I was in church was probably 7 or 8. I was being baptized. My late mother's mother's dying wish was that we should all be baptized. So myself and my siblings were all baptized on the same day. And I was about 7 or 8 then. And then a few years after that, parents started taking us to church more regularly as they sort of were rediscovering their faith. But so the first 10 years of my life really didn't go to church. And then after that started going. So I was almost going through a discovery process with them, and got my first Bible around that time. And then later in Form 2, I also, Gideon gave out Bibles in school. So for me, I like the stories. I was learning alongside. I don't think I was being taught by my parents, but I was learning. So there's some self-discovery and journey of my own. And then was very fascinated with business. And fascinated with business because although my father was a university professor, he would talk about it every now and then. and interestingly enough, it was agriculture related. Although I don't think there's a link here because I did other things, oil and gas, financial services. But we talk about we're going to set up a poultry in the village, we're going to have a palm plantation, and 2 acres would be yours. And I would dream about that late into the night about how that business would work, and so that sparked interest. But I don't think I really knew that it was going to be a career path for me till little experiences that built up, as I went through life, that then clarified for me that this is the direction I should go. But in terms of influences, very academic family, so it was important to focus on that. Integrity was very key. My mother was a sort of an activist. She was an English literature teacher, but she had very activist type views, which probably influenced me quite a bit if I think about it, just in terms of my desire to have impact in the lives of others. And I view that as seeds, and then experiences through life, interactions with others, and sort of built to where it is today.
Great. Now, tell me about your blockbuster story. I want to hear about that because that for me is fascinating. And it shows how you start to grow along that path by taking initiative, building resilience, and growing. Even from a young age. I think it's a very, very powerful story that really, when we spoke about it, really impacted me. So I would love for you to share that with the audience.
Sure. So. When I left Nigeria for college, and I didn't visit any of the universities that I was going to, and picked Carnegie Mellon, where I went to do my undergrad, and there were two wrong impressions I had when I arrived in the U.S. So the first was that all parties would be like what you saw in TV videos, which wasn't the case, and then the other was that there's going to be all kinds of money to be made from all kinds of business opportunities once I got to the US, and which also wasn't the case. But I because of these views and dreams, I got to college in August, and a month later I turned 18, and then I took the life insurance exam, so I could sell life insurance. And I then tried to sell life insurance through my entire first year of university. Instead of focusing on academics, I was trying to sell life insurance. Wasn't successful at all. Made many cold calls, calling everybody. But if you can imagine an 18-year-old young man from Nigeria with a strong Nigerian accent, trying to call primarily elderly white Americans to sell life insurance, it just wasn't working. I think the only person who bought a life insurance policy was my grandmother, just to tell you how bad it was. But first year of lots of cold calls, no success. Second year, I was trying to sell pharmaceutical products, and had a little bit more success, but nothing to talk all about. And third year, partnered with somebody to rent movies, video cassettes at the time, because the students would have to walk 30 minutes, especially during winter, to Blockbuster to rent a movie. Nobody wanted to do that. So we set up a movie rental business as a club under the university. We bought about 1,000 titles and then rented it out to students. And then if they defaulted, didn't pay, because it was a club, we could bill their student account, which meant their parents paid. So we then got guaranteed payments that way. And so that was more successful. And then finished my junior year, and then realized I was graduating in a year. And then I think that summer, and I think as I led up to the senior year, realized that, wait a minute, I actually want to do finance. I want to do investment banking, and got very excited about investment banking. I think I ran into somebody who had just come back from an interview, and the way his eyes lit up about investment banking and the stories he told also got me excited. And then that summer, I think I tried very hard to crash. So for some of you may know about SEO. It's a organization for smart minority students who want to go careers in finance. I did not get into SEO, but I knew everyone in SEO. So I would actually gate crash the events that the companies did for the SEO students. And because all they knew is young Black students were coming in, so I would come about 20 minutes late, and I'll be ushered in without them checking the list, and I would network like crazy, trying to then get an internship. Didn't get an internship that summer, and I also remember that I spoke to someone during the time who said it was given lots of advice, and effectively said, after giving lots of advice, he asked me for my grades, and then told me that he hasn't heard about grades that low. And then somebody entered into a career in investment banking. Now, my grades weren't bad, but they were, I guess, not stellar. And more or less wrote me off after that, okay, I must not be serious. My grades weren't the greatest. And went into depression for 2 weeks after that. And then after that, decided I was going to prove him wrong. And then that led to a series of things I did. I went back to school. I found out I could get course credit if I worked at a brokerage firm. So worked for free, 2 hours a day, 3 days a week at a brokerage firm, just to get close to what was happening in the capital markets. Build up experience. My grades that year were top-notch, stellar. And it did take, my first job was corporate finance, but not investment banking. And then 2 years later, I did get into investment banking. So it took 3 years before I eventually got to JP Morgan. I learned along the way. But I think for me, it was, if anything, I learned tenacity during that time period, trying to get to where I wanted to go.
That is amazing. That is amazing. I love that story. It is so motivating. I really could see that as a movie. I haven't actually seen The Wolf on Wall Street, but I can imagine at some point there's like that, knocking down houses. I'm going to get in no matter what. And that tenacity is really inspiring. And I'm sure everybody's listening is motivated by that. And you really had like...
Just a quick thing to add as well, just as going through my mind, is that there was a woman, I remember her name very clearly, even if this was a long time ago. This is 1994, Rosanna Dorothy, and she was in charge of recruiting at Merrill Lynch. And I remember trying to get interviews with many firms, couldn't get interviews. And because she saw how tenacious I was, she knew I was gate crashing events. She actually arranged for interviews for me with different firms because she was in charge of HR. Now, I did not get a role through those interviews, but I learned a tremendous deal about how to prepare for those interviews, just going through the experience. So it sticks in my head today, not because she opened a door to give me a role, but she opened a door to give me a chance to learn how to and do the interviews and get better, so that I could eventually which then actually led down the road to the role I did have. So, and interesting enough, it sticks in my head, not because of I got a role, but because she opened the door so I could actually go through the process of learning to then ultimately get the role that I wanted.
Amen. That lady sounds like a destiny helper. And I think we all need them in life. When we just pushing, God just sends somebody that will just give that extra leverage. And definitely it's something that we should all be on the lookout for, people like that, but also know that God does use people like that will basically act as angels in our life to help us on our journey. So if there's anybody out there that's struggling, looking for a job or looking for the next step and is trying different things, maybe you should think about gate crashing some networking events. Seriously though, like that is so inspiring. I love it. Okay, let's I just want to remind everyone that's watching, guys, please, if you have a great question for our guest, please post it on. We will ask it to him at some point if it's a good question. So please get your questions in, let us see, and we will definitely put it to Mr. Nwuneli before the end of the show. Ruthkin, I'm going to come to you, sir. Do you have any interesting questions for our guest?
Yeah, like when you were talking about the story, it seems like you took a lot of risk and you took a lot of steps that you didn't know how it would like play out. So I was curious, like if you would have to do like it all over again, let's say, and then you had to start from day one when you were taking all these risks, like what would be different, or what would you be like, because I took that step, I know that this is now what's changed, or how you would like approach it differently. I'm just curious.
That's a hard question to answer
Yeah,
because
it is.
the if even when things did not pan out as I would have hoped, other doors opened that led to things that that were even much better. So the question for me is, if I did it over again, would I do something different or not? I don't know. I think what helped at different points in time was, well, earlier in my career, having friends that encouraged me, and then for most of my life after that, so my wife and I have been friends for 30 years, been married for 23, and she's also been very good about encouraging me at different points to take, different risks. And if I think back, maybe I'll start with, so early on in career. So graduated from university in '95. My first job was going to be in Dallas, starting in September '95. So that's 2-3 months. And then went home to Nigeria, and it was supposed to be just 2-3 months of vacation, not doing anything. And then ran into my wife at the airport and asked her, okay, so what are you coming to do in Nigeria? And she said, well, I decided I'm going to get an internship before I go back to the US and start working with McKinsey. And she asked, what are you going to do? And I was like, you know what, that sounds great. I'm going to get an internship too. And then ended up getting an internship in the same building that she was in that summer. And now if there was, and I'm thinking of different risks that I took throughout my life, but I'll I'll tell one story, and I don't know whether this, and I didn't think of it as a risk at the time, but it could have gone in different ways. But I'm glad I decided to do that. In '95, and how old was I during this time? I was 22, maybe, give or take a year. And I went to my hometown in Anambra with 2 of my uncles. And then afterwards, on the way back, and this is we went by road, so it's a 6-hour drive, 8-hour drive by road. And then I now told my uncles that I wanted to go, further east to Enugu to visit my wife's parents. And by the way, I was not married then. I wasn't dating Ndidi. And she was just a friend. And she was not even giving me a lot of attention at the time. And one of my uncles looked at me and said, are you crazy? And then he's leaving me behind and went on to Lagos. The other uncle said, okay, he would follow me. And then never been to her house. Went to the university and said, where's the house of, Professor Okonkwo? And got directed to the house, and they weren't there. They didn't know I was coming. I just literally showed up, and then left a note saying, my name is so-and-so, and, just wanted to, I'm a friend of your daughter's. I just wanted to come and greet you and, see how you're doing, and left the note. And then ended up taking night bus back to Lagos. And for those of you that know night bus, that's also not the safest thing to do. But then I think that got her parents curious about who is this guy that we don't know coming writing notes. And then also, of course, it caught Ndidi's attention. And so if I think about, that's probably one of the bigger risks I've taken. Because business, you can take risks and recover from it, but relationships, not necessarily. But I think I've been fortunate with different risks I've taken. I left JP Morgan, took 80% pay cut to come back to Nigeria and work in investment banking here. And then, which, was, my parents thought I was crazy, and I decided that I'm leaving, Wall Street to come back. And then even after, when I was at business school, Ndil and I decided we're going to move back to Nigeria. And a move back to Nigeria meant that I was probably going to have a starting salary that was 30% or 40% of my class average, which was also a tough decision to make. But we felt led to come back and made that decision and accepted the offer. And a few weeks before graduation, I got a call from Harvard Business School. I forget which department of the school it was, more or less saying, they track where all their graduates go. They noted I've taken a job that is way below class average, and I'm going back to Nigeria. And because of they have a program to support people who are either going to nonprofits or taking jobs like this, and they effectively forgave 50% of my student loans. So what was a big risk, it seemed at the time, led to half my student debt being written off, from business school. And then, of course, leaving Senegal to come back to Nigeria and starting a company from scratch, was also quite risky, but led to many things afterwards. And I think just feeling it's the right thing to do, having support from family, and being at peace with the decision, I think made it did not feel, I can see how people would say, yes, it was a risk, but I think each time we felt at peace that this is what we should be doing. And so we took those decisions, and I think we've been blessed in how it's turned out over the years.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your experience. That's beautiful to hear.
Wow, that's really amazing, and that really challenges me. A lot of parallels with our last guest as well, just in terms of just trusting God and really taking risks. And one thing he says is, if you can do it by yourself, is it really God? And just trusting God for greater things. And that is one thing that I think I take away from all these series, is just the ability to trust God for more and to step out in faith and take these bigger risks. And I love the fact that you just, it seems like you never just really came to a place where you were comfortable, where you were just like, hey, I think this is it. I think, yeah, this is good for now. Let's sit here and enjoy the sunshine. And it just seemed like you were just always pushing towards the next stage.
Yes, but also no. Interestingly, I think the times when I have gotten too comfortable with where I am, and I know deep down it's time to do something different or to take certain steps. There've been one or two times when the heat has gotten higher to force me out of comfort zone. So it's almost as if, well, you're supposed to leave and go do something else. And I know, God, this is perfect right here. I'm not planning to go anywhere, do anything else. And then things happen that, make me realize that, what, it's time to move and do something else. So so I think I'm at the stage of my life now where I've said, it's just easier that if I hear that it's time to hear God saying, go do something else, let me go do it. Because if I don't, the heat may come out to make whatever I'm doing, whatever the role is, more challenging. And then, yes, so it's, but it's, I think ultimately, as I think through the different things, I enjoy building. I enjoy seeing things built and growing. In a number of the companies that we've been involved in, we've tried to see how do we allocate equity, how do we build up team, how do we share the economics. And I remember probably the first, not the first entrepreneurial venture, but I didn't mention after college, the 2 years I spent in Nigeria. So after JP Morgan, myself and a couple of friends set up a internet cafe chain called Niger Cafe. We had 5 locations in Unilag, in Medilag, in around Lagos, about 30, 40 employees. And I remember with friends building that business out. And I had a full-time job as well, and we were doing this, trying to build this on the side. And for me, the most exciting part of this was not the potential financial upside, which would of course, would be nice, but the fact that we were actually creating jobs in the neighborhoods we grew up in, and then seeing the impact it had on people, the doors it opened. For me, that was very exciting and felt very meaningful. More than the business itself, just the impact it was having on people's lives for me was more meaningful. And I think if I look at a lot of what I've done, I think I've been really motivated by that impact in people's lives. It means more than the potential financial benefits that could come from it. Now, of course, I do like and do want to have that financial upside benefit, but it is not the main driving and motivating factor. I would take a haircut on economics just to have more impacts in the lives of others.
Amen. And that is exactly where we are going to finish off. Know that we're coming close to the end of time, but I told you that I definitely want to cover you and your wife together, because if somebody wants to do a CEO series with women, she would be, top of that list, because your wife is a great leader, one of your many co-founders in so many businesses together, like we saw on the intro video. Now she has a great, fantastic new role in the U.S. as the CEO of a great campaigning company. So, but I've heard stories from a lot of couples where normally it's the man who takes the limelight and the wife is in the background holding things together, holding the family together. Or, of course, the wife can also be in the lead and the man takes a sort of a lesser role to kind of compensate. But here we have, both of you operating at the peak of your powers, two leaders, two giants, two CEOs in one room. It's like, how do you make that work? How do you fit just the strength of character that you both have, the decision making capability you both have? How do you sort of serve and submit to each other, and how do you balance out being at the top of your game at the same time?
Sure. So I think underlying all of it, we've been friends for 31 years. So we know each other very, very well. We met when we were still in college, and we've grown together. And in the growing together, of course, there are ups and downs, and you learn from those ups and downs and those experiences. And I think we've and I have to give credit to her as well, because I think, especially when we were younger, she was probably more savvy about managing relationships, managing egos, just to ensure that to help what's the word, soften the hard edges in terms of when there were different issues that would come up. And as we've grown and gotten to understand each other better, I think it's become easier. And we've also been good about asking for advice and going for counseling. So when we first started Ace Foods, our food manufacturing company, for example, we were both there trying to run the company. And you have two CEO types, very different styles. Her style of managing is different from mine, and we clashed all the time. And it was very tough that first year. This is 2010. And we now said, okay, who do we know who, and the reason I say I give credit, because she's been the one to say, okay, you know what, we need to get advice from somebody. And who do we know who are a couple and have worked together well, and identified the Ayenis, Fulu and Bosse Ayeni of Tantalizers, food chain in Nigeria, for those that don't know. And we actually went to meet with them. And they were very, very kind to give us a significant amount of their time to advise on effectively how do you work together and minimize conflict and then support each other in the same process. And we learned a ton from them. And if I was to distill it, it's effectively that we need to divide what we do, and especially where our individual strengths are, and then stay in our lane. So effectively, using Ace Foods as an example, I would focus on finance and operation supply chain, and she would focus on external relationships, sales and marketing. And then we would just, everybody handles their business, and then we would not comment on what the other person is doing on that side, just because we leave it at that. And I think as we've grown, we've learned how to support, how to stay in our lane, how to, through the years. I think it's gotten easier through the years. So, for those who are going through marriage journey, especially as a couple and two business people who are working side by side, it's, it can be tough in the early years, but if you're diligent about working on the relationship and learning and being kind, and then seeing how to also be supportive, and then being careful also how you engage, I think it gets much better and better over time. It doesn't make it easier, but it definitely becomes much better, and then you then have some understanding. And I think through our careers, we've tried to ensure that when one person travels, the other person doesn't. So there's always somebody in the house with with the kids, especially when the kids were younger, which has meant that it's in 20 years, there's probably only 3 conferences we've been at the same time, because why should both of us go when one person can? So we've also been sort of divided and conquered that way. And yes, so I think it's just learning wisdom, trying to be supportive. It's been helpful that we're good friends, and that friendship has strengthened over the years.
Awesome. Great. I definitely took some notes there, and I have the recording as well. Guys, please, 2 announcements. We're coming towards the end. Sir, we're going to talk about legacy before we go off live. So that's going to be the last question. You can think about it. Just 2 announcements quickly. This will be shown. This will be recorded, so you will get a chance to watch this again. And also, please, you can still share the link to other people. If you found this beneficial, you can share the link to others and say, hey, I watched this and this was great. So please check this out. And then Mr. Gabriel Rojas, I do not know you, my friend, but you have just dropped a big truth bomb for us. He says that we are about 58 people. I see about 65 right now that are watching, but there's only like 5 or 6 likes. So guys, please take 1 second out of your time to just press that like button, because it shifts the algorithm so YouTube can push this out so more people can view it. So guys, please, 1 second, hit the like button, and of course, share it with your family. If you found it valuable, then share it. All right, last question for today. Sir, we are going to talk about your legacy.
Mm-hmm.
You are not anywhere near, by the looks of it, close to the end of your journey, but just talk to us about, as the clock starts to wind down, as the sun starts to set, what would you want to be remembered as?
Sure. I'll talk about a couple of things, but then I'll end on the one that's most important for me. So, mentioned earlier, enjoy building businesses. I want business to scale. I want businesses to compete on the global level, and very competitive, and want to see how to push and build so we can compete on the global stage. So that's part of it. A different part is I've seen how education can make a significant difference in people's lives. It has made in mine. Healthcare as well. I've seen how not having good healthcare cover can throw a family's savings completely eat up a family savings. And then once that's done, it's hard for the family to recover. So Indeed and I spend quite a bit of, we allocate some funds to see what we can do to support around health and education for a broad range of people. But for me, what is ultimately more important is around family. And so if I really think in the grand scheme of things, what would be the most meaningful to me, I think it would really be the depth and quality of the relationship I have with both my kids and also my wife. And what does that mean? And have I been instrumental in helping them prepare for the future or not? Now, this is also tough because in the early part of my career, I probably spent a lot of time working and not as much engaging as I would have liked. And as the years are passing, I think it's me realizing that, wait a minute, yes, it's good to build businesses, yes, it's good to have impact on other people's lives. But ultimately, the only regret I would have is if I didn't do more with, my wife and 2 children. And so for me, if I think about what that success would be 10, 15, 20 years from now, interestingly, it would not be the businesses. That would be nice, of course. It would not be philanthropy. That would be nice. It would be what is the nature of relationship I have with family, and how supportive have I been, and how have I built those relationships in a way that are meaningful for them, for myself. And so if there's any personal development area for me over the years, it's very easy for me to do continuous learning. I do that very easy for me. But the harder bit is around relationships. And so that is the area that if there's anything that I try and work on and continuously and not always successful, is around relationships. How do you build, and because it always means that I have to change myself in that learning process, and changing yourself is never easy. And so that for me is from a legacy perspective, it would be around family related. Now, of course, yes, I want businesses, yes, I want everything else, but end of the day, the relationships and family is important. And I see from the messages that some of my friends are online as well, sending messages.
Awesome. That's great. And you know what? Thank you for being vulnerable, because a lot of people don't like to talk about their weaknesses, their shortcomings, or their growing areas, but you are being vulnerable and sharing. And this is very powerful. And judging by all the messages that we're seeing in the comments, people have really found this inspiring, and I have as well. And this is a really, really great end to the CEO series. I'd like to thank you for honoring us with your time and being a guest on here and pouring out such wisdom and advice to everybody that's listened. And I trust that everybody that's listened has got something from this and a little bit of inspiration to fight out through the dark times and to have that extra bit of tenacity to push through. When the door is not been opening, then sometimes you got to force the door down, and with God, you can, he says, ask and the door will be open, so sometimes it needs a holy kick as well. So we've learned a lot. So thank you, Mezuo. I want to say thank you to my co-host, Apostle Douglas, Brother Rutgen. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody that's been on this platform, everybody that's commented. I see all of you. Tosin Odunfa, thank you for supporting. Tanisha James, Gabriel Rojas, thank you for that great comment. So guys, please like. Let's push this. Let's force the algorithm to share this message so that more people will get it. So you have to like it. You have to share and subscribe. This is the end of the CEO series, but the Real Men will continue. We will come with other topics and we will share it on our platform. So please join us on our Facebook and YouTube. We have Instagram, TikTok, all of them. So you will see what is coming up next. It is yet to be revealed, but trust me, it is going to be so good. So you do not want to miss this. So thank you for each and every one of you that's been watching. We really appreciate you. And then we hope that you will see you on the next Real Men episode.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Hey you! Yes, you! The real you!